application for Riley Weber for the parking commission that I would like to try and get on this week's agenda.
Mr. Chair, I have no problem with that.
I don't either.
Okay, so we'll add also the appointment of Riley later on the agenda. Any other discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll vote, and this might be our first voice vote since March, so this is pretty exciting time.
Calling for roll call, please.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the consent calendar, notice to public. All matters listed are considered routine by the council and will all be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the council votes on the motion to be adopted by roll call.
Move to adopt. Second.
A motion by Bevins and a second by Erickson to adopt the consent calendar. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote by roll call.
Stunek?
Yes.
Pritchett?
Yes.
Bevins?
Yes.
W. Erickson?
Yes.
T. Erickson?
Yes.
Lambert?
yes,
And Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries. Next item is a presentation by the Water Tower Committee.
No costume?
Yeah, where's the Water Tower costume?
I don't fit anymore.
Which hat are you wearing tonight?
I'm wearing a committee hat.
Paul, will you join me?
Name and address.
Name and address, Dave Bedeau, 602 North 9th Street. That's the first time I get to say that. That's my new place. Over in North
I
now.
know.
With me is?
Paul Scoggin, Baxter, Minnesota, 13347 Norway Drive.
All right, so did you guys all get one of the sheets there that we got some information on there? We can pass it if we've got more here as well. So this is an hour-and-a-half long presentation that we're gonna try and get done in 15 minutes, so we're gonna move really, really quickly. With us tonight are members of the Water Tower Committee as well, Mary Cope, Jody, well, yeah, Jody Converse, but Jody's always going by 13 different names. So Jody Converse, and of course, Eric. Yep, thank you. This is why he's here, because I can't remember names. All right, so the Beacon of the North, we're gonna go through a little bit of information on the water tower, then we're gonna get to where we are at with things. So I'm just gonna point at you, Paul, or at you, Sean, and you just keep it going. BrandonWaterTower.com. Special thanks to the Brandon Public Library, the Crow Wing Historical Society, as well as Ann M. Nelson and Carl Furt-Faust for helping with a lot of this information. We dug into the water tower and found out some very fascinating stuff. Some of it you'll hear here, most of it you will not. So, all right, so how do we get where we are? And more importantly, why Brainerd? So if Brainerd has the first ever continuously poured water tower by use for a municipality in the entire world, why in the heck did it end up in Brainerd, Minnesota? And that's the story we're gonna tell tonight, and then we're gonna tell you what we need to do with it. So at the time of the construction of the water tower, we're looking at about 1914 to 1917. Those are the years leading up to, and Brainerd had become known as the City of Fires. It had roughly 14, 11 of which you can see here, major fires within its core, and buildings at that point, if you can imagine, if it started on fire, they were burning down. So there was a problem with water pressure. There was also a problem with the water supply. The Spring Bay site, which was on the west bank of the Mississippi River by Gilbert Lake, was very poor quality. There was sewage bacteria found 2 years back to back, and 17 of the 10 miles of pipe were considered completely useless. So this wasn't just a story of a water tower, it was a story of an entire water system. Northeast and southeast Brainerd never had an adequate water supply. Pipes were laid improperly on Oak Street, and often they would freeze in the winter. So if you can imagine, your pipes are freezing, now you have no water, and why do you have pipes then? So, all right, at the same time, the State Board of Health was urging the city to find an adequate water supply, and the state insurance inspectors kept telling us that they were gonna raise our rates, and as anyone can imagine, that's why you do things, is because your insurance is gonna go up. So the reason why they decided to create a water tower was we needed more pressure to stop the fires, so that we didn't have to pay more for insurance. So, all right, and if you got trouble with water, who you gonna call? Of course, the Ghostbusters. That's where you start off. That's my joke, and that's the only one you get. All right, you're gonna call a gentleman named L.P. Wolf. In our research on the water tower, this is the most fascinating thing of the whole story. Why people don't know who this gentleman is, I don't know, but it's truly fascinating, and I'm not going to get into all of it. But his wife even was the first female elected to a position in, I believe, St. Louis County in Minnesota. So very prominent individual who we'll talk a little bit about him, but we won't talk too much about him. That is his burial site in Oakwood Cemetery in Redwood. And he obviously died in 1933. But he attended the University of Minnesota. In 1885, one of the years he was there were 406 total students at the University of Minnesota. He was the only student listed as being a civil engineer. This is the roster of students here, and you've got, obviously, of 406, 318 were gentlemen, and 88 ladies attended the University of Minnesota at this time, which is just absolutely fascinating. And again, he was the only civil engineer. So he was a founding member of the Minnesota Joint Engineering Board. And one of the reasons why this is ties into our story and why it's so important is this board was instrumental on getting engineers onto the State Board of Health. At that time, the State Board of Health was all doctors, and his group decided we need to get engineers involved because obviously health is a larger issue than just medical. And of course, who do you think that they decided to get on there as one of the founding members? Well, of course, Mr. L.B. Wolf. So he was one of the first two engineers in history to be on the Minnesota Board of Health. Now, so you got fires, you've got poor water supply, you got a guy that's all about changing water supplies and increasing capacity and whatnot. So what do you got to do? You got to get this guy to build you a water tower. So we're going to talk just super fast about the water towers that we know that this individual was the architect for. Obviously, here is the Brainerd Daily Dispatch from July of 1917. Pure water supply, looking for it. There's the Brainerd Water Tower. We all know about the Brainerd Water Tower. We'll talk about it later. Pipestone Water Tower, which everyone probably has heard of, is the sister water tower to the Brainerd Water Tower. Half the capacity, same height, roughly. Obviously doesn't have the crenellations, which is my favorite word, but diameter is half. So as opposed to 300,000 gallons, this water tower held 150,000 gallons. The third water tower, though, that most people didn't know about, and I didn't know about until we started doing research, is the St. Mary's Hill Park water tower. This is in Rochester. And it was constructed, is the third of which. Ours was done in 1920, Pipestone's 1921, and this one was constructed in 1923 to 1924. Obviously, you can see the differences moving in his construction, his final one being his, let's call it crescendo. Maybe he had another water tower afterwards. We're going to assume he did.
Still in use.
Is it really in use? Still in use, Paul says. I did not know that. But as you can see, there's a change in design moving forward. But what we're trying to show here is that this isn't just a water tower in Brainerd. This isn't just a water tower that showed up out of nowhere. It is a water tower that has significance throughout the state and throughout the country as well. One of the cool things about the one there in Rochester is you can see there's cell tower stuff attached to it, which I'm assuming is generating some money. And again, there's a closer look there. One of the biggest design changes that he had was the arcade balustrade, is what they're referring to it as, which is the walkway underneath as opposed to attaching to the outside of the water tower as ours are and Pipestone's is. All right, but why concrete? So we won't even bore you with all the huge details, but basically here's what happened. There was an argument, should it be steel, should it be concrete? And the railroad said, we'll give you the land that the water tower is on if you make it out of concrete. And so they became the first ever continuously poured water tower for use of a municipality in the entire world, because obviously there was some politicalness to that. And I'm sure the railroad wanted a staple, a big piece to show. And we're off, it says. June 1919, the work started on the water plant. 80,000 gallon reservoir begins near Boom Lake. You can see in these photos, and we're going to move through them real quick, but you can take a look and see how wonderful they look. Look at that area. That is down by the Mississippi. You can just keep flipping through them. Just, yep, there you go. You get a good look. This is to tug on your heartstrings and make you feel nostalgic for the way things were, and also we're gonna stop on that one real quick, and be thrilled to look at your city from 100 years ago. This is actually South 6th Street. And these pipes here were pulled up when we redid it a couple years ago. So those pipes were in the ground for almost 100 years, running down there, not in use, but we just pulled them out. So that's kind of an interesting ordeal, taking a look at that. Just keep taking a look at those. Interesting time in the world. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but 8 million horses were killed in World War I. I don't know if you know that or not. A time when we had tanks, but yet we were riding horses. And it's just a fascinating process in which they dug down South 6th Street there. All right, so meanwhile at the water tower, this is July 1919. They're gonna start pouring the foundation. Very interesting, if you look at the foundation, we can show you some pictures later on. The water tower is 40 feet in diameter at the top. It is 40 feet in diameter at its base, down in the ground, which is fascinating, and I have said 1,000 times, I don't understand how that thing doesn't tip over, but I am not an engineer. So, they started on July 12th, 1919, that's them pouring the cement. We'll just keep going through here. This is where things get really interesting. We're not talking about a dump truck backing up with cement. We're talking about gentlemen with wheelbarrows dumping things into a hopper and raising them up. So what they would do is they would create the wooden structure, which you can still see if you're on the inside of the tower, you can still see all the slats from the boards. They'd build an area, they'd fill it up, then they'd move up. And as you can see, the individual, almost like a tree, they'd work their way up. I don't think you can see it in this photo here, maybe in the next one you can. The hopper there is what you're looking at for filling with cement. That was raised up, and that's how the cement was poured. And so they would pour a section at a time, then they'd let it dry, pull it off, move to the next, pour, boom, 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 until they got all the way to the top. Then of course they built the whole top. That's from the inside. Again, there's the wooden slots you can see as it goes its way up. And there again, that's October 16th of 1919. And then they had to shut down for the winter, of course, because they didn't get it done. So back in April, they started working again. And this is, I think, probably the most fascinating part of the whole entire story, is when you talk about continuously pouring a water tower, it wasn't the tower structure, it's the bowl itself that is continuously poured. It took 3 days and 3 nights in order to do this, and it was nonstop. So 1 bucket at a time, pulling it up, dumping it, pulling it up, dumping it, pulling it up, dumping it, for 3 days straight, 24 hours a day. There it is right there, and that's a fascinating little thing that's on the top there that you may not know was there. That is the roof of the water tower, and that's where we get to the real story. The water tower initially had a roof on it. It was a domed concrete roof, and again, down at the bottom there, you can see those are the footings. They only go down about 7 feet, and then they go out a couple feet. So it is 40 feet up at the top, it's 40 feet down at the bottom, out a little bit. It's fascinating to me, absolutely fascinating. And that's actually the original architectural drawing, by the way. I don't know what that last one said, so we'll move on. That's a picture of the water tower. Moving on. All right, so this is where things get interesting. Almost immediately, the water tower started having problems. It was completed in 1920. I believe that's the slide we missed. December 10th of 1920 is when LP Wolf signed the documents saying the work was completed. That is our finishing date. That obviously will be our 100-year birthday coming up here on December 10th. I thought it was the 12th. I thought wrong. It is the 10th. Which happens to be my fiance's birthday, which means it's extra special. 1928, the bowl developed severe leaks. They had to drain the entire thing, and they went in and they put a membrane in. Okay? Then they lined it with red brick. And so this is where the story gets really interesting. In 1928, 8 years after the water tower was created, it is severely leaking. They go in, they put a membrane in, they put the brick in. That's the new water tower. We know all about that. You can skip that. In 1968, they examined the water tower. At this point, it had been out of commission for 6 years. And there was, at the time, a steel band at the top. So the tower went up, the bowl went up, and there was a steel band. That had rusted and was, in their eyes, needed to be removed. The fear was that it was going, once they did that, it was gonna cause everything to collapse. So at this point, the city council puts aside $50,000 for the tower's removal. Now, you can remember where we are today. We are at $300,000 for the tower's removal, but we're in the exact same boat, where the council had to make a decision whether or not it wanted it removed or wanted to save it. This is when they set aside that $50,000, that's when people got activated and started to try and save the water tower. They're looking for options. They came up with some options. We're not gonna go through those, but one of those options was that baby right there. Would've been cool. Didn't happen. What ended up happening was the city of Brainerd took it to a referendum. The votes came in, and I think this is probably the most important thing of all. The city has already passed a referendum to save the water tower. The citizens of Brainerd at that time spoke up and decided to save the water tower. And I don't think they saved it to save it for X amount of years. I think they tried to save it because they wanted it in perpetuity. However, in this process, what ended up happening, and the very last thing on the list of things that they were gonna do there, was they removed the roof. The idea at the time was there was a concrete roof on top, it was putting pressure on the bowl. If we remove that, it'll get rid of the pressure, and now we'll just have a cup, which will work like a gutter system. If rain comes in, it just goes down. We'll use the same pipes that we were using to get water up and down, and it'll just drain all that water out. So that's what they did. At the same time, it was put on the National Historical Site, or the newly formed National Registry for Historical Places. A very weird thing happened. The roof should not have been able to be removed, but it kind of got removed in between this being approved and getting actually on the list. So the roof never should have came off, but it did come off. There's a picture of the documents they used when they were looking to remove the roof. There's the roof. Obviously, the ladder getting up to the top was removed as well. So that leads us to 2013, and this is where the story takes its interesting turn. We start seeing stucco falling off of the water tower. We do investigations. We find out that what's happening is water is getting into the inside of the bowl. It's getting into that red brick, which if you've been on Fert Faust's history tour, he'll tell you all about. Red brick is notorious for sucking up water. And so what's happening is that red brick sucks up the water. It's getting to that membrane, which at this point is 90 years old. Remember, 1928. And that membrane is doing nothing. So the water's coming in, it's soaking up into the brick, it's then getting to the membrane, which isn't stopping it, then it's getting into the concrete, and the proof that it's getting through the concrete is the stucco falling on the outside, water getting behind the stucco. So we'll take a look at that next picture. That's the red brick there. Some of it has fallen, obviously. I'm gonna take a closer look there, the red brick that's in place as well. That's actually the flagpole that's attached. So in 2016, the council, and I believe it was through the Minnesota Historical Society as well.
Yes.
We got funding to get a report done. We got this whole report done. That's where all these numbers came from, where people were looking at it and they said, oh my gosh, it's gonna cost $3 million. In looking back at the information, there's some issues with the scope that's in there. Part of it is what's the real problem? What's the big concern, and then what is the extra stuff? And what are the things we can fix over time, and what are the things we have to fix now? Some of the problems, and I would highlight a few. You can't really see them there, but there's $78,000 set aside for a parking lot and trimming of hedges, none of which we own. We do not own the hedges, we do not own the parking lot, but that was included in the dollar amounts there, as well as electrical and whatnot. So, because of you guys giving us the 2 years, we sat down, we went after funding from people, and then this is why Paul is with me. We applied for the grant through the Minnesota Historical Society again, kind of phase 2 of our project. And Paul, if you can talk super fast about what happened with where we're at with that. And you guys have a packet in front of you as well.
They got the packet.
They do have a packet, and just a few items in it.
What we did on this, we got a grant from the Historical Society for a set of plans, architectural, structural plans for the roof and a few minor other improvements, which would be inside the spiral staircase, the windows, and a few other things. And that grant right now, it's a year-long process. The way the grant works, we got the grant, and there's a 30, 60, 90% review from the Historical Society. We just had the 30% last month. So we have a 60 and 90, and what you see in front of you is the 30% of the process, or their construction process, and what it shows is within the bowl, the base of that water tower is structurally sound and never gonna fall down. I believe they show 5 or 6 columns up there with a roof frame, and then a plywood substrate over that, along with a EPDM roof, which all has to be okayed by the Historical Society and also the oh gosh darn it.
I'm supposed to help you with that, but I forgot.
The people from the federal government that okayed our Historical Society. National Registry, thank you.
Came in just in time.
Yeah, so anyway, so right now, that's where we are in the process. We're at the 30% process. I talked to Mike Lovato, we're working with LHB out of Minneapolis. They were approved by the city of Brainerd to come up with the plans and architectural plans and specifications for this project. We're working with Mike Lovato. These guys are registered with the Historical Society and with the federal government to do plans based on the scope of work. So that's kind of where we sit on that now. The plans probably be done in spring of 2021. And then once the plans get done and approved by the city and by the Historical Society, then we can go out and look for bids on putting a roof back on that structure. In the plans, there's about 2 or 3 phases that go with that. One of them is the roof, then we got the interior staircase, the windows, and some minor improvements on that. So the first thing we gotta look at is phase 1, which would be the roof, to get that on there to prevent the infiltration of the water and the freeze thaw cycle up on that bowl, so.
So yeah, as the story goes, we remove the roof in 1974. We start getting the seepage of water into the concrete. Obviously, in the winters, the freezing and thawing is happening. That's causing an expansion and contraction. Right now, there is no structural damage to the tower itself. The tower is fine. The bowl, at some point, will crack. Once the bowl cracks, all bets are off, and it's a done game at that point. So where we're at is it needs a roof. Step 1 is it needs a roof to stop the leaking of the water coming in, and then from there, we can buy time, because as Engineer Sandy will tell you, the tower is not going anywhere, and it will actually probably be very expensive to take it down. So where we are in our process, and just to talk about the 2 years that you gave us, the first year goals was education, getting the correct information out to the public, dispelling rumors. Obviously, there's a lot of rumors about what was going on. Speaking with various agencies and identifying funding options, which we did, getting the grant from the Minnesota Historical Society. And then our biggest goal in the first year was to show support by small donations. We didn't want to go and find someone with deep pockets and say, hand us your money, because that doesn't show that the community is interested. And what I'm interested in is this something that the city really wants? Is this something that the citizens really want? Our goal is to find the problem, our goal is to find a solution, and our goal is to try and find a path that we can get to a scenario that is solvable. That's a decision for the public to make. Our second year, which also says first year, I don't know why that is like that, but what's next is obviously completing the engineering designs, which we should have by spring of 2021. Partnering with area businesses to try and show more support, which is what our goal was this year. Obviously cut short with COVID, and then taking that number, and that's the goal. The goal is to take it, get the bids, find out what it's gonna cost, and then go to the public and say, all right, here's where we need to be, and let's get there. Through grants, obviously continuing with the Minnesota Historical Society, that's not a for sure thing, but there are large amounts of money that are available, and in the process that we're in, they like to kind of put you in slots. Complete step A, which we've done. We're completing step B, and then step 3 or step C. Was a joke. That's my second joke. Obviously, we would be hopeful for it as well. So the future is yet decided with it. The public ultimately needs to make the decision. That's what happened back in '68. That's ultimately what should happen at the end of this. I know how I feel about the water tower, and I know how some of you feel. I do think that it's worth saving. That's not my decision to make. You know, I didn't run for election to tell people what we should do. I ran for election to represent people. And what I want to do is show people a process and let them make a decision. In order to do that, we need to determine the cost of the actual preservation versus demolition. And honestly, I think the city should be prepared for higher than anticipated demolition costs. Talking with Engineer Sandu, it's not a for sure thing, but there's a chance that $300,000 is not going to cover the demolition of that water tower. So, moving on to the next slide here as well. The city has invested $300,000 into the potential removal and demolition. More than likely, that's lower than the anticipated amount. And what we're asking for as a group is for continuation of this process. We're obviously moving the pegs down the road, but the one thing I did say is we're not going to come up here and say, oh, COVID happened and that slowed us down. Well, it's really it's moving through the process. We applied for the grants, we got the grants, we're now working through the bidding, and that process is just longer than what we anticipated. I guess myself, I didn't realize that we would be taking a full year to get from receiving the grant to then being able to take it to bidding, but that's the reality of the situation. So that is our ask. Our ask is to continue moving forward to find the actual cost of the roof construction and then compare that to the demolition so that the public can have a full understanding of what's happening. And I think that's probably it. Join the fight. Share the information with your friends. Donate to your time and volunteering to events. Contact your local representatives. That's these guys right here, as myself included. And then show others how important the water tower is. And you can do so at brainerdwatertower.com. And I'm going to leave you with this last slide here. This is something that was in the paper, and I'm not sure on the year. I just have the photo. But these are the names of individuals who were thanked after the tower was saved the first time. And I want to leave that up there because I want you to look through that list and I want you to realize the names that are on there and the history that comes from the process that this has been. You know, 1968, people stood up and saved the tower. Merle Storm is on there. His granddaughter Ashley is actually a member of our committee, and that is a fantastic list of people there. And I know you'll notice quite a few people, predominant people from our wonderful city. And that's it.
Okay, I have a question. So ultimately, right now, what you're asking is for us to not do what we budgeted to do, and that is tear the tower down next year.
Well, yes, absolutely, I'm asking you that. But what I'm really asking you for is an extension on our time process. The concern initially was with the insurance. I don't know if we've heard this year at all. Has that affected our insurance at all this year? We have not heard. Last year, we were given the A-OK. The steps we have taken have put us in a good light, obviously with the fence and all that stuff as well. What we're asking for is an extension of the time so that we can continue with the process.
So our insurance doesn't seem to be affected by it at all.
Right
Oh.
now, they're saying that we have a plan to try to remedy, and so they know that this was a plan, that they were trying to work on this. I think I need to reach out to them again and say, this is our plan, we're looking at least 2021, spring of 2021, to make sure that they're aware of it. But I think if we keep in contact with them and they know we haven't had any additional pieces falling off, we've done everything that they've told us that we need to do.
Have you talked to the attorneys or the car lot people? I mean, the neighboring properties that have the stucco falling on
We
them?
have been in contact with the attorney. Obviously, he supports the water tower, but is, just a bystander in the process. So he doesn't seem to have any continuing concern. We put the covering over the walkway. We put the fence up. We put up the sign saying that there's no access to the water tower, which was one of the concerns that he had, was so many people were coming up and wanted to be in our wonderful water tower, but obviously could not. So far, Brad seems to be satisfied.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for your presentation, and we'll consider your request.
Thank you.
So do we want to take action on anything regarding the water tower tonight?
May I sneak back in real quick?
Recognized, yeah.
Why the heck would I not tell you that, so we had raised $21,000, just over $21,000 initially. Then we held our event on September 24th. I don't know if you guys were aware of it. I know some of you were there. Some of you had our wonderful meal. Some of you participated in our silent auction. We, after all of our expenditures, raised over $8,000 in one night. So we just wanted to throw that out there as well. So that was our big plan this year was to have 4 major events. We condensed it down to one COVID-related drive-through event, but we were able to raise $8,000 in one night. So
Thank you, Kelly.
Just a question, Mr. Chair, I don't recall the exact deadline. I mean, are we dealing with a timely situation here with the 300,000 and tearing the water tower? I mean, clearly that time seems to be the issue. It's what they asked for, and it's what we put in our motion 2 years ago. Time, and that's, if we need to do something, it'd be nice to know. I don't recall.
You know, maybe we could have staff look up the minutes. I believe we set a deadline of you have till October 25th, 2020 to,
I thought so too. So that being said, I think there is a deadline. And I mean, based on that, I'd be willing to make a motion, but it's based on the fact that I anticipate that there is a deadline.
Jennifer?
You know, I'm not sure, I had heard that the deadline was October 19th of 2020. Are you asking
So
whether
that-
you
yeah,
should make a
Just make a
motion for the
motion
fence?
just in case, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I would make the motion regardless, and Dave, you're absolutely right, but I'm not sure I really am interested in hearing where this is going with the cost of the roof, so I might not be considerate of a 2-year thing, but certainly an April 1st, or let's say a June 1st. Just that we hold off.
Revisited in June
We
1st.
hold off with the previous motion until June 1st, 2021 to get more data on the cost of the roof, and that would be my motion.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second, and that is to extend any deadlines that were imposed to be revisited on June 1st.
The first meeting in June.
The first meeting in June of 2021. I guess I have a question for the mayor then. Are you going to have some cost estimates by June 5th or whatever?
we're hopeful that that should be the case. We should have, early spring, we should have it ready for bidding, and then we should be able to have those bids in by then.
Okay. Connie?
Does the council want to address the $300,000 estimate being a little too low? Do we want to start saving some more for that as well in the 2021 budget?
I'd like to speak. So we keep saying the word bids. I want to make sure that the council's aware. I don't think we'll be bidding anything. It'll be an estimated cost for construction. You're not going to bid something and then not have the money to pay the contractor. When you go out to bid, you're assuring the contractor you have the funds secured basically, and it just wouldn't look good for the city to bid something out and then say, oh, we don't have the money, so now we know how much you're gonna bid and we'll rebid it later, and so I think we'll have an estimated cost by
That's
then
what was
from
my
the
motion,
engineers.
estimated cost.
Yes.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
Jan?
I guess the only thing, I guess I would like in the minutes that if there is any further damage, then we have to reconsider it, the timeline. That's the only thing I would like on the record.
Yeah, and I think if something changes, we would have to address it immediately regardless of any self-imposed deadlines. Well, any other comments? Hearing none, we will vote on the motion to revisit the water tower in the first meeting of June 2021. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you for everything you're doing for the community, to that entire committee. This is fixed to last another 50 years, hopefully. That brings us to item number 7A, Personnel and Finance Committee, Alderman Pritchett.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We have 4 items on our agenda. The first is the approval of bills and payment to contractors, and the motion coming out of the committee is to approve.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the bills. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call.
Stunek.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Bevins.
Yes.
W. Erickson.
Yes.
T. Erickson.
Yes.
Lambert.
Yes.
And Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries. Alderman Pritchett.
All right, item number 2 is the Shared Maintenance Services Agreement Amendment. Motion coming out of the committee is to authorize the signature on the agreement amendment for the 2021 Shared Maintenance Service Agreement, and I so move.
And second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the amendment.
So, Mr. Chair, just a little background on this. This is that shared maintenance agreement that we have with the county. We had originally budgeted, well, I'll use the word budget probably a little loosely there, for 2,800 hours, and we've never used that. 15% of that was basically administrative time. So we're kind of shifting that to 1,500 and shifting some of that administrative time to, I believe, 30% administrative time. So we're using less hours than the original. So the original contract was for about 120,000. This new one will be at 96,600. And of that 96,600, the library will be paying 7,500 of that. And so this agreement will kind of give us a better idea of how many hours we need, how many hours the library needs, and we can adjust it from there. So.
Excellent. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
All right, that takes us to item number 3, which is a resolution for the Towards Zero Death Traffic Safety Enforcement Grant. Motion coming out of committee is to approve the attached resolution authorizing the police department to enter into cooperative agreement with the State of Minnesota Office of Traffic Safety for the fiscal year of 2021 TZD Traffic Safety Enforcement Grant, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just coming out of this, basically the grant begins in October 2020. It'll end September 30th, 2021. The Office of Traffic Safety has awarded us the grant of $54,150, which is actually up from $52,000 last year. And we are again the administrative agency for the area.
Okay, so it's a countywide goal, but we administer.
Right, we have to give that resolution in order to fulfill the grant.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing no more discussion, we'll vote by roll call.
Stunek.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Bevins.
Yes.
W. Erickson.
Yes.
T. Erickson.
Yes.
Lambert.
Yes.
And Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries.
All right, the last item on the agenda is the 2021 health insurance. We have 3 motions coming out of committee. And so the first motion is to accept the 2021 renewal from Sourcewell Health Partners with a 3% decrease in premium and a second-year rate cap. Now, the cap is the maximum that it can be of 15%, and if we pass this and pass where we are changing the $1,000 deductible, it would only be 12% with this, for the smart plans being offered, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go with the Health Partners Sourcewell plan.
I kind of figured we'd get that out of the way. We have Adam, the broker here, if people have questions. Tad was on the committee, if you have questions. There's a little bit of background that I can give too, but I think they could probably better handle any specific questions than I would be able to.
Are there any questions on the motion? Tad, do you want to just kind of give the council a little background on the committee and your decision-making process?
Yeah, so the committee was comprised of all the bargaining partners within the city, and I think there was initially 12 proposals. Adam might be able to talk a little bit more about that. They narrowed it down to 7 of them. Ultimately, the recommendation came down to really 2 policies. One, the incumbent from Sourcewell, which is a health partners policy, and then another policy, which is Blue Cross Blue Shield. And so just for a variety of reasons, the group, it was kind of a split, but out of the committee it was 3-2 to stay with the incumbent Sourcewell policy, which as you can see from the packet was results in a 3% decrease. Initially it was a 0, no change, and then Adam and city staff had reached out to Sourcewell to give them kind of the last look, and they were able to bring it down to a 3% decrease. And then again, those second-year rate caps Doesn't mean it's gonna go up to those, but it can't go any higher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I ask Alderman Erickson a question?
Yeah.
So, Tad, I see there's 2 Blue Cross Blue Shields in our list of 7. One is BCBS of Minnesota Direct with a 4.7% increase, but the other one is the Minnesota Health Consortium with a 6.7% decrease, over double what Sourcewell is giving us, and a cap in the second year of 9%, whereas we're at 12% with Sourcewell. But I hear was there any consideration given to the low bidder?
Yeah, so those were the two, the low bid,
Oh.
the Blue Cross Blue Shield consortium. And while it is a lower rate and also lower second year rate cap, there's some costs that aren't factored into that, such as the broker's fee, which is factored into the 3% already of the Sourcewell plan. And then there's also additional costs having to do with the wellness program. So yeah, that did come up and was discussed at length. I don't know, like, would Chris or Adam or anyone else like to comment on that? But yeah, it did come up quite a bit and there was a lot of discussion.
So our employee insurance committee met, and there were several reasons why the committee felt that we should stay with our incumbent instead of switching to the consortium. One of the biggest reasons was reduced benefits between the two plans. So with the consortium using Blue Cross Blue Shield, they have a different network for the prescriptions. Right now, about 18% of our prescriptions are filled at Target. That is not allowed through the Blue Cross plan. We would have to switch that and educate our employees on that. Also, their wellness program isn't as robust. Wellness is something that we are really focusing on to try to maintain our rates in the future. If we can stop those chronic conditions from getting to a certain level, the wellness thing is very, very important. And so they thought that was important to us. Sourcewell's plan includes an employee assistance program. With the consortium, that's an add-on where we would have to add additional costs to that. There's also they have something called top value providers. And so if you utilize those providers, employees actually get an incentive to go to them. They don't have the incentive through the consortium. They have something similar as far as a provider, but Sourcewell has just approved some things to try to get people to use those. Those are recognized positions where they, or places where they have a higher rate of return as far as when you use them, better success rate, less complications and things like that. So they feel it's a better bang for their buck to use those types of things. That is the part of the main reasons why they looked at the Sourcewell instead of the consortium.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thanks for serving on that committee, Tad. I certainly don't understand health insurance. So seeing no other discussion, we will do a voice vote on the motion to go with Health Partners, Sourcewell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
All right, the second motion coming out of committee is to eliminate the $1,000 deductible plan and offer 3 Sourcewell Smart Plans for 2021. The plans that will be offered are Smart Plan 1, which is a $1,400 deductible, Smart Plan 3, which is a $2,800 deductible, and Smart Plan 7, which is a $7,000 deductible. And if we do this, that is what relates back to the 12% cap in motion 1. And I so move.
And second.
We have a motion and a second to go with the 3 plans, options.
Mr. Chair, just kind of coming out of that, we only had 5 employees on the $1,000 deductible, and staff will be getting into conversations with those 5 employees. So they felt it was pretty good to be able to keep the $1,400 deductible, have a low one. There was actually some requests for a higher deductible, which is why we have the $7,000 deductible. And so the other one is in the middle to kind of give a complete platter of options for employees.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on these 3 plans by voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
All right. And then the third motion is to retain North Risk Partners as our health insurance broker for 2021. Final cost will be $19,000 after utilizing the 2020 RFP process cost offset, and I so move.
And second.
We have a motion and a second to retain North Risk Partners, Alderman Pritchett.
And so when you look at that, it's not $19,000 coming just from the city, it's from the other entities, BPU, et cetera. The city would only be paying approximately $8,000 of the $19,000 for the broker.
Thank you, and this is a new thing. We haven't had,
Not recent.
we haven't retained a ongoing a health insurance consultant.
We actually have had a broker in the past. We utilized Strong Insurance for our broker. We had paid them $5 a month per policy. And what they did was very, very limited for us. We didn't ask them to do more at that point, but what we did is when we went through this RFP process, we were able to see what a fully engaged broker can give us. Between the researching, reaching out to different entities, presenting the information, and also negotiating for us. That is the reason why we're asking for a switch in the broker.
Okay, and everybody was highly satisfied with what they provided us, correct? Yeah. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote on the motion to retain North Risk Partners. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
End of report.
Thank you, Alderman Pritchett. Brings us to item B, Safety and Public Works, Alderman Bevins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 6 items on tonight's agenda. Item number 1 is the event street closure application for the St. Francis School Marathon. The motion is to accept staff's recommendation, approve the attached event application under the conditions that the applicant request traffic control 1 week prior to the event, and that the signs and banners be removed from the city right away after the event. And I so move.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the application. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote by voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 2 is improvement 20-02, which is the 2020 crack seal project final pay application. The motion is to accept staff's recommendation, approve the final payment to Lot Pros Inc. in the final amount of $12,644.48. And I so move.
Lambert, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, just a reminder that we did also pay, was it $56.25, Paul, for materials as part of this project?
Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote by voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 3 is improvements 16-09, which is Buffalo Hills Lane, and 19-07, which is the Mississippi Drive reconstruction project final pay application. The motion is to accept staff's recommendation, approve the payment of the final contract amount to Creamer Excavating in the amount of, well, the total is $1,722,090.58, correct, Mr. Engineer? $131,649.95 is this estimate, subject to approval of the payments to the contractors on P&F, which we already did. And I so move.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I have a question. Is this ended up a little bit over budget? Our estimates on what we told the citizens we were going to assess them. Do you know how much this is going to affect each individual homeowner with the change in assessment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The letters went out on Friday here this last week. The base assessment rate, I believe, was $1,700, which we sent out $1,500 in the original, and then the other one was $4,200. So they went up about $200 on each base assessment, and then those multiplying factors were added, whether or not you lived on the project or where exactly you were at. So anywhere between $100 and $200 is what the increase was on it.
All right,
Assessments.
thank you. And then we're having that public hearing next meeting, right?
Yep.
So, any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 4 is the Laurel Street Expansion Joint Gland Replacement. The motion is to accept staff's recommendation and approve the quote from PCI Roads for the east and west end expansion joint gland replacement in a total cost of $18,459.60, and I so move.
Lambert, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 5 is the streetlight request for 2014 Crestview Lane. The motion is to direct staff to reach out to the petitioner and see if there's any other agreement from the neighbors as to whether they want this turned back on or not. And I so move.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, there's an awful lot of arguments both ways on this regarding the program 8 years ago where we turned off streetlights to try and save money, to save light pollution, etc. And a number of them have been turned back on. The only concern is this is one, there's quite a few streetlights on this particular road. And we'd hate to just agree to this one person's request and find out there's 6 other people that don't want it on, because it's been off now for about 8 years. So we thought we'd reach out to the petitioner. If they want it on, they being the neighborhood, then we should probably turn it back on. That's the thought process of the committee. But let's see what the rest of the neighbors have to say.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Thank you, and our final item is the Transit Telecommunications Site Use and Annual Lease Agreement. The motion is to accept staff's recommendation and approve the attached telecommunications site use and annual lease agreement with Cavell Corporation and authorizing proper signatures on the lease agreement as such upon approval and review by the city attorney. And this has also been recommended by the Transportation Advisory Committee. And I so move.
Lambert, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, what this is there's a tower out by Oak Ridge Road that this company owns. We've been leasing space for the antennas for our two-way radios for our buses and other things.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Thank you. End of report.
Thank you, Alderman Bevins. That brings us to unfinished business. Item number 8, we have a couple of committee recommendations from the mayor.
That's right, we do. This is the second half of my hour-and-a-half long presentation. Just kidding. This is the committee recommendations. I'm going to do these both at the same time, if you don't mind, as they are both for the Parking Commission. I am recommending Kevin Yeager and Riley Weber, both to the Parking Commission.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the mayor's recommendations. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
All right, and this is the call for applicants, the fun part of the night where I ask you to come join us for all sorts of fun and endeavors. I am looking for applications for the following. Cable TV Advisory Committee, 1 term expiring 2021 and 2 terms expiring 2022. The Charter Commission, 2 terms expiring 2020. The Brainerd Housing and Redevelopment Authority, 1 term expiring 2020, as well as the Water Tower Committee that you just heard of and has wonderful representatives, and the Parking Commission, which is quickly filling up. It's a hot ticket item where you want to get in there. You want to be a part of it.
Popular committee, Kelly.
Not many spaces left.
How many parking spaces do you have on the Parking Commission?
Parking spaces, we have unlimited. I don't know if you've been downtown, there are just so many parking spaces. No, we've got a couple slots left on the Parking Commission. We'd have to double check that, but I do believe we have a quorum now. I
Is
do
it
believe.
5 member, 7 member? We probably have 5 people on it.
I believe we have 5.
2 staff, right? It's
Yes.
5 and Paul and.
Paul and myself.
And the mayor.
That's right. That's why it's a popular item. You get to come sit with me and talk about parking, because you know how much I love parking lots.
Anything else, Mayor?
Nope, that's it.
Thank you. We removed the new business. That brings us to the Planning Commission. Final reading of proposed ordinance 1511, amended section 51562 of the city code. Jennifer?
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just a second reading to amend the ordinance to allow the greenhouse at Yesterday's Gone. David Shansky is not able to be here this evening. Be happy to answer any questions. I know that there was discussion at last council meeting. This is the final reading of that ordinance.
Okay, looking for a motion to dispense with the actual reading.
So
Lambert, so
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Move to adopt ordinance 1511.
Lambert second?
We have a motion by Bevin, second by Lambert to adopt ordinance 1511. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will vote by roll call.
Stunek.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Bevins.
Yes.
W. Erickson.
Yes.
T. Erickson.
Yes.
Lambert.
Yes.
And Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries. I'm looking forward to some fresh vegetables at Yesterday's Gone in the near future. This brings us to public forum. Time allocated for citizens to bring matters not on the agenda to the attention of the council. Time limits may be imposed. Is anybody here for the public forum? Anybody here for public forum? Anybody here for public forum? See nobody come up. We'll move on to staff reports and start the city administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the council. I did provide a written report, just a couple of things to highlight. First of all, we did have our first Charter Commission meeting since we have established a new Charter Commission. The chair, they did elect officers. The chair is Jeff Chezak, Vice Chair Kevin Yeager, and Secretary Chuck Marone. The commission really discussed the review of the charter. As you know, the council budgeted $10,000 in 2020 to review the charter. And so the city attorney was there along with Alderman Bevins to talk about what that looks like. The recommendation was brought to first take a look at those things in the charter that conflict with state law. And so the Charter Commission has charged the city attorney with redlining the charter and then bringing back a redlined version of those things in the charter that conflict with the state law. So that will be step number one. And then also the Charter Commission also asked the charter members and staff to bring back things that kind of indicated a conflict or things that we might want to talk about at the subsequent charter meeting. So I don't know, City Attorney Kelly, if you guys have anything else to add on that.
Just that we didn't have any votes, so I didn't have to vote against anything.
The other thing I really wanted to highlight was I had the opportunity to take a tour of the wastewater treatment plant. Charlie Gammon gave me a tour. It was scheduled to be an hour and a half. It was a 3-hour tour. Yep, everybody sing. I would strongly encourage anybody to take that tour. Charlie offered to give it to whoever would be interested in it. It was incredibly eye-opening. It is amazing what has to happen to clean our water. So I really would. Take advantage of the tour if you have the opportunity. If you are interested in doing that, let me know. I can connect you with Charlie, but it's worth every minute of it. Couple of other things. I did send out an email today. I had received an email from County Administrator Tim Hool about the CARES Act grant program. They did get a number of applications. They will be, the county board, so the city of Brainerd received 66 applications, or the county received 66 applications from Brainerd businesses. Of that, they are recommending $647,025 for approval. Then there are 28 that they are recommending not being approved, and that's a total of $260,000. So the county board is going to be discussing that at their meeting next Tuesday, October 13th. I asked for a list of those businesses that were approved and those that were not approved. And the response that I received was that they wanted to share that with the county board first. That should be coming out in the county board packet on Thursday. As soon as I have that information, I'll make sure that I share that with you. So their county board meets October 13th at 9 a.m. to consider those applications. They are looking at a phase 2, and I did include that information in your email. So the county board will also be voting on what phase 2 could look like to try to expend the rest of the money. So the total amount, so as you recall, the county budgeted $3 million. The city of Brainerd allocated an additional $300,000 for Brainerd businesses. They received for small businesses 1.76 million in requests, so they do have a significant amount yet to grant out. So the county board on the 13th will be talking about those next steps. And then last but not least, this morning there is a group that is interested in taking on the farmer's market in the summer of 2021. So Marie Kirsch, who is the owner of Knotty Pine, Brenda Hillman Arndt, who is the owner of Purple Fern, Crowing Energize, the Crowing Co-op, University of Minnesota Extension, and missing one, pulled together a group to start talking about that. Just step one, and so I think the next thing that they want to do is come up with some criteria. I would expect within the next couple of months that they'll be bringing something to council for you to consider for a 2021 farmers market. So really exciting to see. I think you remember we reached out to 5 different organizations who were not interested at this time, and I think a lot of it had to do with COVID. Now, all of those groups seem to have pooled together and are looking at possibly getting something together for 2021. So also, just so you know, probably heard all the fire sirens going on. Just want to let you know, I did reach out to Tim Holmes. It was at Crowing Recycling. It's all okay. So everything is already being cleared. So I just noticed everybody was looking around as the sirens were going off. So that was what that was. And that concludes my report, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you. Any update? We got the small business update. Do you have any update from the nonprofit grants?
Yeah, thank you. So the nonprofit grants, again, 1.5 million. You know what, I don't, Gabe.
Okay, but that should be in the same county packet. They'd probably be taking action on the same.
Yep, so, yeah, I don't, Gabe. I was more focused on the small business. I can get back to you on the nonprofits.
Yep, that'd be nice. Any other staff report updates? Paul?
Go ahead, Connie.
Go ahead, Connie. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, yeah. We had our first solid waste committee meeting here last week. It went very well. We met, got some recommendations from both the committee and the haulers that we'll bring forward to the council on the October 19th meeting. So hopefully we'll get that in front of you to look at and see what you guys think of our work over an hour. So that's all I had.
Good, looking forward to it.
Okay, I'm just giving an update on the CARES funding. To date, the city and BPU has spent $728,762. That's through the end of September. So that means that we have about $305,000 remaining to be spent. We have some things on order, but we also will be bringing this back on the October 19th agenda, just if we need to amend some of the, we had a contingency there and how we're spending the contingency and that kind of stuff. Also, for the elections, the election law has changed, has been updated this year. Absentee ballots that are postmarked November 3rd or before will be counted when they arrive at the courthouse and added to the votes for totals for up to 7 days. So the night of election, results will not be final. Results from the precinct and any absentee ballots will be made public that night. But they will not be final because in each day we'll add. So the results will not be final until the close of the business day on November 10th. And then the county will forward that information to the city, and we need to have a special council meeting on November 12th or 13th to canvass the election results. So, just to let you all know, we have quite a few people that are up for election. Just wanted to get your hopes up that you would know on November 3rd.
Most of y'all are up for election, aren't you? Good luck. Any other updates?
Mr. Chair, I have one thing that I did forget. In regards to the October 19th city council meeting, in order to give people the opportunity to be able to comment on the assessments, I think we have 5 public hearings, Paul. We would like to recommend to the council that we move to 100% virtual. Our recommendation from the city attorney was that would make sure that we have social distancing. We don't want to make people wait out in the hall in case we have a number of people. So his recommendation was that we just went 100% virtual on October 19th.
Does anybody have a problem with that?
I just got back.
You're back in your basement. Okay, that ends the staff reports. That brings us to the mayor's report.
Well, it's me again. I had taken over half of this meeting, so I'm going to continue and make it more than half of this meeting. I just want to state again that our fundraiser on September 24th was a fantastic success, and I can't speak enough for the committee members that are here and that are not here. Huge task in today's climate to put on an event like that. It was a smashing success. We had a line around the block, and that is not a joke. We honestly had a line around the block of people that were excited to come in and get food. Over $5,000 in just donation and food sales. And our total was over $8,000 with the silent auction items. Over 35 businesses gave us items for the silent auction as well. And most of those items sold. The ones that did not, we hope to do another small event for the celebration of the water tower, which again is December 10th, 100-year anniversary, 100-year birthday. We'll put a big bow on it for you guys.
Make it look like a cake.
Maybe. But I just want to say thank you to that group again. It's been a long process, and they have done a fantastic job. The secondary item that I forgot to mention in that report was that we are in the process of forming a 501c3 as well. So hopefully that will help us bring in some additional funding in that we have had a few people that have, what do you refer to it, Paul? I need you now. When you, donation, what is it called? What is it called when you? We're nowhere near to where I'm trying to get to. When you call the hotline, and you or the
Bad phone?
never mind.
Ghostbusters?
Yeah, Ghostbusters. There we go. Nailed it. For those of you watching at home, this has been the mayor, and I am an idiot. But no, it's we have some funds that people they need to have earmarked to a 501c3, and so they are holding off on those until we can do so. So we hope to hear back soon. If we are moving down that road, we should be hearing back very, very soon. So again, thank you to them, and thank you to everyone that came and participated. Amazing. I'll tell you what, everyone should have a drive-through now. We proved it's wildly successful. Drive-throughs everywhere. No more parking lots.
Thank you, Mayor. That brings us to council member reports. We'll start with Tad Erickson.
Yeah, thank you. Just a really brief Arboretum Board of Directors update. They're going through their annual officers nomination process. The only seat that seems to be in question, they're looking for a treasurer, so hoping to find someone with some, banking or fiduciary background. In addition to that, they're considering a revision of their bylaws just to bring it up to date, and a couple things that they wanted to update that on. In addition, the biggest thing coming out of that committee is upcoming haunted trails. They are going forward with that. They've got a pretty robust COVID plan for how they're going to operate that, but they are going forward with the haunted trails. It's their biggest event of the year. Dates for that, October 15th, 16th, and 17th from 5 to 9 at the Arboretum. The only thing with that is due to COVID, they've had several groups that usually volunteer kind of make the decision to step back from that. So they are short for volunteers. And so just a call for volunteers for the haunted trails for the Northland Arboretum. That's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Jan?
I was on the committee with Paul. It went very well in the haulers. And we are going to resume the rental maintenance this Wednesday. So hopefully we'll be done with that by the end of the year. So it's every the first and third Wednesday at 8:30. And it's at the fire department's training room. Thank you.
Thank you. Wayne?
I have nothing.
Kelly?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I was at the Legion for the water tower fundraiser, had some delicious barbecue, and picked up a soon-to-be autographed, mayoral autographed curbage board. So I've been told.
I do what I can.
And
Probably charge you for the signature.
if it goes to the water tower, it'll be worth it. And I was at last Thursday at the Visit Brainerd open house downtown, and I'm sure Gabe might embellish on that. What the hors d'oeuvres from Sage on Laurel were really spectacular. Just if you haven't been down there since they've reopened, the stuff they had for the Visit Brainerd, open house was phenomenal. And just to go back to a SP&W, agenda item, does anybody else think the mayor needs to join the third graders at St. Francis for the marathon and burn off a little bit of energy and maybe put that water tower costume on?
Get pledges for both the school and the
I think we could slip you in that water tower costume as a third grader.
How long of a marathon is this? Because the mayor's got COVID weight on and he doesn't need to be having heart attacks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, I saw most of you at the Visit Brainerd Open House. I'm glad that you could make it, for those who did and those who didn't. Visit Brainerd is open downtown. Go check it out and buy yourself a coffee cup or something. That's all I have.
It cost me $50 to get out of there.
Wait till you get the signature.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have, it's great to hear all these events. I know a lot of people are suffering a little cabin fever early, a little COVID frustration. It's also election season. So just real simple advice, it costs nothing to be kind. All right, so have patience with one another and be kind to one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
I have nothing, Mr. Chair.
Do you have a motion?
We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.